My name is Kathy, a 40-year-old office worker who had been doing clerical work. I was living with my husband, Bob, who is 3 years older and works at the same company, but we don't have any children. We've been married for 10 years. As I got married at the age of 30, I had a sense of urgency about starting a family right from the beginning. Both of us wanted to have children. While there's almost no biological clock for my husband being a man, I thought my limit was 35. I'm not particularly strong physically, so I wanted to get through childbirth and parenting while I had the energy. However, my wish did not come true. Bob and I started trying to conceive immediately after our wedding, but there were no signs of pregnancy, so we decided to get tested at an obstetrics and gynecology clinic. The results showed that I had some problems which made it hard for me to get pregnant. It wasn't like I couldn't get pregnant at all, but the odds were very low, and I was told it would be difficult. Bob was disappointed and said, "Can't I become a father?" Seeing him like that, I couldn't say anything. We continued to try for a child with a slim hope, but in the end, no child came to us. I tried to cheer up my downcast husband by saying, "It's not the end of the world. Let's enjoy our life together as a couple." He also seemed resigned, saying, "Yeah, there's nothing we can do about it, so I guess just go with the flow." However, gradually, Bob began to change. When we were walking around town and saw a family with children, he would say, "If I had a kid, I wonder if I would be enjoying a family outing like that on my weekends." And sigh. When we were invited to a coworker's house and saw their children, he would say things like, "You're so lucky to have kids," and seemed envious. I wondered if he couldn't give up on having a child deep down, and I felt uncomfortable. And then Bob began to grow cold towards me. When we were trying to conceive, he had been very proactive in helping out with the housework, saying that I shouldn't overdo it because it could affect my ability to get pregnant. He would always be the first to say, "I'll carry that," when something heavy needed lifting, and he was a kind husband who cared for me. On weekends, he would always take over the household chores, saying that I do them during the week. But once he knew I couldn't have a child, he stopped doing anything. I'm tired and housework is a wife's job, right? With that, he spends his weekends just lazing around. He was either sleeping or playing with his smartphone. Suddenly, I had more to do, and my health began to deteriorate. When I had a fever or stomach ache, he would say, "I don't know, do it yourself." And he wouldn't even take care of me. I couldn't say anything to him. After all, it was true that I was the reason it was hard for us to have a child. I wondered if I should get a divorce. It was just then, when I thought things were going well, Bob was transferred. Apparently, he was chosen for a big project at one of the affiliated companies. The subsidiary was across the state line, so he ended up moving for work. I naturally thought I had to go with him, but he said, "You don't need to come. I'll be going alone." Hearing those words, I took some time to think. Maybe he was just frustrated and cold towards me because I couldn't bear a child. Living separately for a while might help calm his feelings and we might return to our peaceful relationship. I agreed, saying, "All right, I'll stay here. Take care." I saw him off. After he was transferred, he would return home only about once a month. Even when he returned, he would soon say he was busy and had to go back. That was usual. But I was happy to see him, even for a short time, because if he really disliked me, he wouldn't come back. After Bob went alone, he began to change gradually. At first, he was the same as always, but as time passed, he became kinder. He would bring me souvenirs saying, "I bought something for you, enjoy." Or he would go shopping with me despite having limited time. He would check up on me asking, "Is there anything troubling you?" I completely thought he had returned to his kind self. Initially, his work assignment was for 1 year, but he ended up staying there for 2 years. The project's schedule was significantly delayed. By the time the second year of his assignment came around, he stopped making any remarks about me not being able to have children when he saw families with children in town. Rather, he said, "We couldn't have children together, but I've given up on it." I was relieved to hear that he had given up. 2 years later, he completed his work assignment and returned home to me. "Welcome back. You must be tired." "I'm home. Finally, we can live together." With such calm exchanges, we resumed living together. But those peaceful days quickly crumbled. After returning, he told me something. There's a young girl in my family who had a baby before getting married. She says she can't raise it by herself because she's too young. Would you be open to us adopting the child? He suddenly proposed. Taken aback by the sudden proposition, I asked, "What's going on?" To which he said, "We couldn't have a child after all. I'm suggesting we adopt this child and raise it as our own." Overwhelmed by the unexpected turn of events, I said, "Let me think about it," and ended the conversation, but I felt something was off about his story. His family lived far away and we didn't have much contact with his parents. Our relationship was so distant that we only exchanged Christmas cards once a year. We didn't have a wedding ceremony, so I didn't know his relatives well. Reluctantly considering adopting a child from someone I hardly knew, I told Bob, "Could I meet the child's parents? I'd like to know what kind of people they are." But he firmly refused, saying, "Why does it matter who the parents are? Why are you so interested in that?" "I think it's important to know who the parents are. I want to hear the detailed reasons why they can't raise the child, and first of all, what happened to the child's father." When I pressed him, he flared up and said, "The father ran away, I heard. Stop snooping around about the parents." Being told you suddenly take in a child of a complete stranger, you don't just say, "Sure, why not?" "What on earth are you thinking?" I couldn't help but respond in a harsh tone. Then he shouted, "Enough! If you refuse to take the child in, it's over between us. Get out, right now." I felt as if I had heard his true intentions in those words. He wanted a child at any cost. My existence didn't matter to him. That's what I came to believe. I also felt I had reached my limit. "All right, I'll gather my things and leave then." I quickly packed up my belongings and left our home. That day, having nowhere to go, I found shelter in a motel near the train station. The divorce procedures with my husband went smoothly. We settled everything through a lawyer to avoid any disputes, and issues such as alimony, property division, and other matters ended without any hiccups. Feeling awkward working at the same company as him, I quit and found a new job. I was proficient in using a computer and also had administrative assistant certifications, so I managed to get hired at a small law firm. Adapting to my new workplace took a little time, but somehow I managed to work every day and lead a peaceful life. Having lived separately from my husband for 2 years, I had gotten used to coming home to an empty room. One day, after about a year of this life, my ex-husband appeared at my workplace, and he was holding a small child. Seeing me at the reception, he exclaimed, "Why are you here?" He was in shock. "Why wouldn't I be here? I work here. It's obvious, isn't it?" Upon hearing this, his face turned instantly pale. I was curious about the child he was holding, but first I escorted him to my supervising attorney, and there I learned a shocking truth. "Sir, I've been suspecting that this child, who was born a year ago, doesn't resemble me at all. I'm doubting if it's really mine," he said. "I see. If it turns out not to be your child, what do you plan on doing?" "Of course, I'll divorce my wife. But legally, you can only dispute the paternity of the child within a year of its birth. Even if you take a DNA test and find out that the child is not yours, you would still have to pay child support." "What? You must be joking." "I'm not. There have been such precedents in the Supreme Court as well." I was recording their conversation as a clerk, and while working, it dawned on me. He had cheated during our marriage and had a child from it. Considering the age of the child and the period of pregnancy, it was clear that the child was conceived around a year after he went on a business trip. And then I remembered that he had been unusually kind to me since then. I realized that he might have felt guilty. It seemed like his current wife was his junior from work. Each time he explained something, he would glance at me with a pale face. It was natural, after all. His ex-wife, whom he tried to leave with the child of his affair a year ago, was right there. In the end, he said, "All right, I will take a DNA test first and then reconsider." With these words, he left with a downcast look. I told my lawyer, Mr. Williams, about my divorce from last year when my ex-husband returned at the end of the day. Mr. Williams was quite surprised and asked, "You know, you can claim alimony for infidelity within 2 years of discovery." What's your plan? I said, Of course I want it. I want to claim it from his mistress, too. Well, then let's start the procedures right away. Thank you very much. In the end, I claimed alimony through my lawyer, Mr. Williams, from my ex-husband and his current wife, who was his mistress. To prevent them from evading it, I sent the claim not only to their home but also to their workplaces and his in-laws' place. Then I got a call from my ex-husband right away. What's this claim about, huh? It's an alimony claim for your infidelity. We're already divorced. There's no way I'm paying alimony. That's not true. You can claim alimony for infidelity within 2 years of its discovery. We divorced a year ago, and your infidelity just came to light, so it's well within the claim period. At that point, a woman's voice I didn't recognize told him to change, and she took the phone. Hello? What's with this claim? Caught off guard by her sudden outburst, I asked, Who am I speaking with? I'm his wife. Take back at least my part of this claim. But it's only natural to claim alimony when I've been cheated on. Listen here, he said he was single. I thought he was single. So I went out with him. I didn't know he had a wife back then. I don't care about that. Even if he lied about being single, the fact that you had an affair with my husband doesn't change. I'll take a neat $20,000 from each of you. Our child will need money as they grow. There's no way we can afford such a huge amount of $40,000. That's not my problem. You're working too, and he's in a decently high position, so I don't think there's a financial issue. You know, because you sent that claim, he got demoted and had a pay cut, and I got downgraded from a full-time employee to a part-time one, and my income dropped. We can't afford to pay such a huge amount, she said, hysterical. Well, then ask your parents to cover it. I won't back down one bit. I absolutely won't pay. I'm not paying, she shouted, and he came back on the phone. Just as my wife explained, we are going to be in a tough financial situation. Could you please drop the claim? No, I absolutely won't drop it. By the way, let me tell you something good since we're at it, I said to him. What's that? Do you remember we had a fertility test a few years ago? Oh, yeah, we did. Although it turned out that I had a problem, actually, the test results showed that you also had a problem. What? You're kidding, right? It's true. It's true that I had a problem, but you did too. But at that time, I was shocked and didn't want to hurt you, so I kept it a secret. I still have the paper with the test results. Want me to send it to you? When I said that, he muttered, It's a lie. It's a lie. Probably the shock had him tuning out everything else. Truth be told, the doctor at that time did say there was indeed a significant issue on my end, but my husband Bob also had his fair share of problems. The doctor told me, Both of you have issues, so it might be tough to have a child. It's not just your issue, Kathy, so don't take it all on yourself. When Bob heard that there was a problem on my end, he was so shocked that he ran out of the doctor's office without hearing the whole story. I was going to keep this fact a secret, but I decided there was no need to hide it anymore, so I told him just now. He muttered, That's a lie. That's definitely a lie. To him, I said, All right, let's leave it at that. I'm busy. And I hung up the phone. After that, I managed to get exactly $20,000 in total for emotional distress from each of them. $40,000 in total. She didn't want to pay, so it seems Bob took on the entire burden. Afterwards, it appears Bob did have the child undergo a DNA test. Turns out the child is not his, just as he feared. Apparently, he's considering divorcing with his wife, but since he'll have to pay child support and emotional distress compensation to her, he's forced to continue his reluctant marriage with his current wife, who was his affair partner, as he doesn't even have the financial leeway due to his demotion. The reason he wanted me to raise his child with his affair partner, it turns out, was because the affair partner is quite a strong-willed woman. He told me himself, when he came to pay the emotional distress compensation, that if he had custody of the child, he planned to find some excuse to break up with her. Recently, his relationship with his wife has become strained, and the atmosphere at home is tense. At work, everyone looks down on them as the adulterous couple, and he seems to be having a tough time. As for me, I'm completely used to my single life and living peacefully. I have plans to go on a trip with my friends during the next long holiday. Even though I'm alone now, my days are fulfilling with work and socializing with friends.